All right, well, tonight I want to go back to what we were discussing last week. We were talking about the whole idea of being a peacemaker, and we kind of started off with the whole premise that in order for us to be peacemakers, that is to say, being able to make peace with others, peace between myself and others, as well as peace between others and others, before we could do that, certainly we would need to first be able to have peace with ourselves. If we don't have peace with ourselves, it's going to be difficult for you to have peace with other people. I mean, that just makes sense. If you yourself are fighting internal wars and you are constantly depressed, miserable, angry, upset, and generally unpleasant to be around, you're going to have a very, very difficult time bringing peace to others or being able to diffuse, difficult or contentious circumstances or situations between other people. So, being a peacemaker first involves mastering our own peace. And we looked at a couple things that can interfere with our peace, and we kind of spent more time on one. So let's take a look at that. So last week we looked at the whole idea of James chapter 4, and we looked at 1 Timothy chapter 6 as well. Basically saying that, well, let's just look at it really quickly, just a recap, and then we move on. James chapter 4, verse 1 to about 8 or so, we'll see. Where do wars and fights come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war in your members? You lust and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and war, yet you do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on your pleasures. Adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. So the whole idea is, where are these wars, where are these internal battles coming from? Why is it that you have internal anxiety and unrest and you are anxious and miserable and all of that? Often it is as a result of our own insatiable desires. Human beings, by default, because we have what the Bible refers to as a sinful nature or a carnal nature or a fleshy nature, because our natural man often dominates our life in a sense, that natural man basically has insatiable desires. It always wants more food. It always wants more sex. It always wants more attention. It always wants more money. It always wants to be more secure. It always wants the bigger, the better, the greater thing. And if that is the major dominant thinking of our lives, it will consistently leave us in a place of unrest and discontent. We will never arrive. We will never get to the place where we really want to get to. That is, we will never really get to that place of peace, satisfaction, and fullness. So then we took a quick look at 1 Timothy chapter 6, and we said, let's read from verse 3. If anyone teaches otherwise and does not consent to wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, and to the doctrine which accords with godliness, he is proud, knowing nothing, but is obsessed with disputes and arguments over words, from which come envy, strife, reviling, evil suspicions, useless wranglings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain. From such withdraw yourself. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, With these we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. But you, O man of God, flee these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, gentleness. And it goes on. But that key verse for me is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Well, let's just talk about that a little bit. We looked at it last week, but I want to expand on it a bit, and then I want to, move on from there. Now, there's a part of the human being that keeps longing for more. And the reason for that is that the human being is really trying to satisfy an eternal longing, an eternal yearning, okay? It's like it's natural for us to want to be reaching forward, okay? But the key is to have that natural yearning for more. The key is to have that satisfied with God and godliness and the character and the person and the interests of God. The thing is to be enwrapped in love, enwrapped in truth, engrossed in righteousness, to be attending to those things. In John chapter 4, Jesus says something real interesting. Let's jump there really quickly. So we looked at this a couple weeks ago. Jesus is talking to the Samaritan woman, and the disciples come back, and the Samaritan woman goes away, and the disciples are talking to Jesus, and they're telling Jesus, try and eat something, right? Because they were on a journey, and, they were tired and hungry, and they went to go and buy food, and they left Jesus behind. So when they came back, they're coming back trying to give Jesus some food to eat. But Jesus isn't eating anything. He is otherwise occupied. And that's when he says this very interesting saying, right? We can pick it up from John chapter 4, verse 31. In the meanwhile, his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. Therefore said the disciples one to another, Have any man brought him aught to eat? Jesus saith unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. Okay? So that's a real powerful scripture there, because basically what Jesus is saying is, my satisfaction, okay, that which sustains me and fills my belly, in a sense, and gives me satisfaction is the will of God. Is the will of God that satisfies me. It's the thing that drives me. It's the thing that pushes me forward. And when I am doing the will of God, and when I'm accomplishing it, and when I'm carrying out all the things that my Father asks me to do, that's when I feel satisfied. That's when I am full of fulfillment. That's basically what Jesus is saying. He's saying, my meat, what is it? Verse 34. Jesus saith unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. All right? So jumping back to 1 Timothy chapter 6. This is what we want to attain to. We want to develop our appetite for the will of God such that it overrides our desires for temporal earthly things. Not that temporal earthly things aren't to be enjoyed and to be arranged and that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with arranging temporal earthly things for your benefit, especially when you're doing so lawfully and you're doing so in a productive way without hurting others and so on. That's fine. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. Okay, so godliness with contentment is great gain. Now, in a day like today, those words can be very difficult to embrace and live by wholeheartedly because of the extremely powerful temptation to do otherwise. What I mean is that the pressure, the social pressure, I think has never been higher than now to get everything that you can in life right now. Do everything that you can in life right now. Especially when you see so many other people seemingly partaking of the good life. This person is driving that, this person is going here, traveling there, this person has this material thing, this car, this house perhaps, and there seems to be a free for all. Like everybody is just like booming. The whole thing is booming, right? The stock market is booming. The whole society seems to be thriving. And though it is not true, Instagram and different social media apps would definitely make you believe that because, as you know, people curate their image for public presentation and consumption, but the reality of their lives is quite different or can be quite different. But we don't know that. And we think to ourselves, geez, man, there's such a strong pull for me to go here and go there. But let's just examine that a second. If you are successfully able to deactivate that thing that draws you to temporal distractions, if you are somehow able to get that thing to stop grabbing you and controlling your attention span, and you can free yourself from wanting to keep up with the Joneses and wanting to keep up with the Brathwaites or the Holders or whoever, if you can free yourself of that, you have just liberated yourself from a whole set of concerns and a whole set of pressure because you no longer need to reach certain physical standards. And that immediately gives you a whole lot more time, energy, and bandwidth to focus on other things. In life, God is kind of like very free in that he says to Adam, look, you can eat whatever fruit you want. God's restrictions are pretty limited. God says, just don't eat from this tree. But you could do whatever else you want. You could eat from that tree, any other tree. And so it is with us. God just says to us, look, you can go and build a company. You can go and build any company. Just make sure that whatever you do is not sinful as far as I'm concerned. God says, don't thief from people. Don't just take things. God says, don't idolize things. Don't put anything or any objective or any ambition above your relationship and your allegiance and your agreement with me, right? As chief commandment. Basically, God is saying, me and you, our connection, our relationship is priority. Make that first. Don't let anything get between me and you. That's basically what God is saying when he says, don't have any idols. Okay? My relationship with you is priority. Anything else has to come after. That's another simple restriction that God puts on us. God puts the other restriction. Don't kill anybody. Go and do what you want. You can go and buy a jet ski and you can go and you can do jet ski tours, or you like this tree over here and you like nature. Well, you could go and you can extract from the tree. You can create your jewelry or your fabrics or your bags or whatever you want to do. Just don't kill nobody. Don't be killing people. Don't be killing people over the bags, over the jet skis, over the money, over anything. Don't kill anybody. Okay? Don't thief the things, don't kill nobody. Now, I put sexual desires and stuff in you. You're going to find that you're going to be attracted to the opposite sex. If you recognize that somebody has an agreement with another person, leave the two of them alone. Don't interfere with them. Ain't got nothing to do with you. You go and find some other option. And again, you could choose whichever option you want, but don't go interfering with other people, right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay? You should not take the Lord's name in vain. That's kind of like a very condensed, simple one. Don't blaspheme, basically. Don't be saying wicked things. But what I'm basically trying to illustrate is that the restrictions that God places on us, I mean, this is some pretty basic stuff. Stuff that really you shouldn't have to say, right? Stuff that, and which is why God never started out Adam and Eve with 10 commandments. The laws of God are written on our hearts already. We know not to thief somebody's stuff, not to steal somebody's stuff. We know that we shouldn't be killing people. We could kind of sense that if two people have an arrangement, that we shouldn't be interfering with that arrangement, that we should leave our brother's woman to himself, right? And not to interfere. We know that. Ain't nobody need to tell us that. But because we were so hard, there's God said, let me write it out, write it down, so that you could see it. But really and truly, God shouldn't have to say any of this, right? He shouldn't. But the restrictions that God puts on us are very reasonable and they're somewhat limited. We can almost do everything else. Just do it godly, right? Godliness, okay, is going to save you a lot of trouble. Okay, it's going to save you a lot of trouble. Oh, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's things. That's another simple restriction that God puts on us. So, if your neighbor is doing well with the sheep or the goats or the bulls or whatever, it's not your business to be coveting what that man has. Okay? Man, I tell you, if you really think of it, people is complaining about God, is get real vexed about God, and is be real upset. But if we were able to successfully do the things that God asks us to do, which are reasonable things, we would have a lot less trouble. If we could manage to not covet our neighbor's things, we will have a lot less trouble. If we could manage not to steal our neighbor's stuff, our society would be a lot more comfortable, a lot less stressful. Part of the stress that we endure is because we need to lock this and lock that, and we got to secure this. For you to buy security bars to outfit the entire house is thousands of dollars. And then you can't lock everything. You got to have some sort of escape scenario. So then you got to find arrangements for keys. And then you got to make sure that you don't lock your key inside. Then you got spares, and you might need to give a spare to someone else. And you multiply problems simply because you got to keep people from coming in your house. They should already know not to come in your house. You shouldn't have to be going through so much lengths to keep people out of your house. But if the society allows stealing, then you multiply your problems. So godliness, right, is great gain. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Okay? If you don't have that strong desire to get the supercar that your friend has or your colleague at work has, let's talk about that supercar. For you to afford that supercar, you will need to do one or two things. You will need to save aggressively, ignore a lot of different financial opportunities or a lot of different philanthropic opportunities, because you could be helping others. You could be doing a whole set of things with your cash. But because you have this material goal in mind, you have to be extremely prudent, extremely frugal, and extremely, you got to be fairly tight with your money, right? You got to be saving aggressively. That's one option. Or you're going to have to multiply your money, which is usually the better option. But that's going to take a whole set of creativity. And we're not knocking creativity, all this is good. But essentially, it's going to take a fair amount of planning, organizing, testing, checking, and then executing, and then failing 10 times, and then eventually being able to master the skill of administration and, opportunity management and so on. And finally, at some point, you're able to multiply your money at a exponential rate, and thereby you can now afford to get that supercar that your friend has. So you've either got to be incredibly focused on a defensive type strategy where you're saving and trying not to spend, or you need to be extremely focused on an offensive type strategy where you're trying to multiply your money via creative means, right? All of which takes a whole set of energy and focus and attention, and it just absorbs time and consumes. It can have the tendency to consume a person. Okay? If you couldn't care less about the person's supercar next door, you save yourself all that trouble. You ain't gonna think about nothing like that. Right? You are free to not be interested in any of that. You don't have to work them extra hours. You don't have to do all this testing and so on and so forth. And I'm not knocking business. I'm not knocking economizing. I'm not knocking creative business endeavors and so on and so forth. To each his own, and God gives us, certain things to do on earth. What I'm saying is a simpler view of life and a less hyper material outlook on life allows you to gain a lot of time, a lot of peace, a lot of time to enjoy relationships, a lot of time to pursue godly things like we see in the same Timothy. Let me read from 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 9. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. But you, O man of God, flee these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, gentleness. Right? Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life, to which you were also called and have confessed the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. Okay, back to verse 11. But thou, O man of God, flee these things, meaning the hyper pursuit of money and material things, and pursue. So when you separate yourself, or not separate yourself, but when you de-emphasize the pursuit of material things, immediately you have time and energy and bandwidth, if you will, to pursue other things, such as righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, gentleness. We spoke about this last week, but I just want to re-emphasize this again. You can study righteousness. You can study godliness. The same energy and effort and time that you pour into multiplying your resources, you can put that energy into love, into righteousness, into godliness, into faith, into patience. You have a completely different experience. So I'm not saying that everybody needs to walk around like a monk, but to the extent to which you could do that, you are kind of richer than a man with several millions of dollars, but in a sense tied to his money and tied to his commitments and tied to his responsibilities. And I'm not speaking against the builders and the creators of this earth, because we need builders, we need creators, and maybe you're one of them, maybe you're called to be one of them. Whatever the case is, I'm just saying to us that godliness with contentment is great gain. That alone is a very, very, very amazing accomplishment. If you can be godly, that's going to multiply your peace. It's going to multiply your joy. It's going to multiply your relationships. If you can be content, it's going to free you from all the chains and all of the pressures that come on us because of our insatiable desires. Godliness with contentment is great gain. If you are content with your wife, let's say, well, here we got a little double scenario. If you are content with your wife and your wife is content with you, you don't have the trouble that many relationships go through. Many relationships go through problems because people are unable to be satisfied or content with the other partner. So sometimes the men in their, men have high sex drives most of the time, high levels of testosterone, and are willing and ready at any given moment to exercise, their God-given proclivity, right? To engage in some sort of sexual encounter with any female almost. That's just how men are. Men just like to engage with females in that way. But if you are content with your wife and your wife is content with you, you could save yourself all of the drama, all of the drama, or a lot of it, that will inevitably come about in your space if you were to go interfere with other people, women, or go and interfere with other single women. Your wife is going to be so angry, so miserable, so vexed. And oftentimes, if you cheat on your wife or you entertain other women, right? That woman would either be really, really unhappy, as in your wife would really be unhappy, and there's going to be a lot of friction, there's going to be a lot of trials, there's going to be a lot of challenge, and eventually she's going to leave more often than not. Sometimes they don't leave, but they're not happy. That's for sure. If you could be content with your one wife, you save yourself and your wife a whole lot of problems. Godliness with contentment is great gain, right? You don't got that drama to deal with. On the women's side now, they tend to like men that are exciting, men that are somewhat romantic, men that are strong and successful and are financially free and have financial options. And, they like to see a good, strong body most of the time. And, there's certain things that women may tend to be attracted to. Your man or your husband may not have all of that. But if you could be content with your husband and stop from looking across there at Devontae or Adrian or Alexander or whatever it is, whoever is that over there flexing, if you could avoid him and not be looking in that direction and you could be content with your man, you can save yourself a lot of stress and misery and confusion and the drama. You can save yourself a lot of drama. Because if you're going to cheat on your husband, well, your husband could get so vexed that your husband could actually bring some physical violence to that situation. Somebody could get hurt seriously. Somebody could die. Or the husband might just, divorce you or leave you. Or, he will be unhappy and miserable. If you could just keep to your husband and left out everybody else, you save yourself a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. You save yourself. You save yourself a lot of trouble if you can just be content. Godliness with contentment is great gain. I do real estate sometimes, and sometimes I am in the position where my opinion may be requested. All right. So I got a couple here. I'm thinking of one couple in particular. They were looking to purchase a house. And they were telling me that they qualify for, let's say, 600,000. But if they wanted, they can get more. They could go as much as, say, 850,000, right? They could get that if they wanted. But they were thinking, maybe we should just start around 600,000. And they were asking me my opinion on a couple different houses and so on. And I could see that these people, they were not savvy business people. Okay, they were professionals in their profession. I don't want to name the profession, but they were professionals and not financial professionals. They were another type of professional. And they weren't financially savvy. If they were financially savvy people, I could have had different advice for them because it would mean that they were accustomed to certain type of thinking, certain types of risk, certain types of, management and so on. They would have had different minds. But these people were locked into their profession, just doing their thing, anybody trying to balance 500 problems. So I don't want my advice to be too heavy, but I just explained to them, listen, you have to really think about what you want your life to look like. If because I heard them discussing all sorts of things, but how they could just buy this and then they could add on this and they could add on that. And they can want a pool and they want a third story view because they wanted a view and such. And all of this stuff. And I'm like, gosh, boy. Again, I'm not vexed with them because most people haven't really sat down and thought through their life in a practical way and actually determine, okay, what is my life likely to look like? What do I really want to be doing in my life? Because when you're 20 and when you're 30, it's a whole lot different than when you're 50 and when you're 60. You're not doing all that. You don't got all that energy, right? So you can't make decisions at 30, 34, 35 without properly, you can't make good decisions without properly considering, the 50s and the 60s. That's a different time. Do you really want to be 50 and 60 with a big, heavy set of mortgage over your head? Is that what you really want to do? I had to tell these people, look, you have to really think through your life and you got to settle on what is absolutely non-negotiable. You got to think about, are you going to be a couple that's going to be traveling the world and spending a whole lot of time out traveling? Because you can be when you're home in the island, you can be working most of the time. Anyhow, I don't know how much time you got to spend in that Olympic-sized swimming pool that you want. I don't know how many nights you can spend in that fancy gazebo structure out there and so on and so. Do you really need all of that stuff? When you got a really nice view, it only takes you about a year or two before that view becomes like any other view. It's just, do you really need to spend an extra 200,000 for that view? Right? I mean, it depends on you. I'm not telling you how to live your life or how to buy your house, but I'm telling them, do yourself a favor, search through your heart and your mind properly with a real pragmatic mind and try your very, very best not to let your emotions run away with you. And you picturing this lovely swimming pool with these lights and this and, and how all the entertainment, you might only entertain twice a year. You may not even be in the island. You may be so busy at work, you come home at 8 o'clock most nights. You ain't got no time to look at your view, nor use your Olympic-sized swimming pool. And then most of the time you spend on vacation. Well, then you may not need a big house, right? You might need a small house. You plan to have 7 children? You might not need, a big old house with 7 bedrooms. You might be able to get along with a nice, decently sized 2-bedroom house or 3-bedroom house on 1 story that allows you to span from now till the end of your life. You finish paying off that mortgage in your 40s or your early 50s. You free and clear. You ain't got no drama on your back. You can spend time traveling. You can spend time exploring different options. And you can if you want, you can continue to save and so on, but you don't have the pressure of a mortgage leaning over your back. But maybe you want this big, lavish, expensive thing, man. Well, it can cost. It can cost you time, it can cost you energy, it can cost you, right? But if you can not want those things, if you can control your desires and you can embrace the habit of contentment, right? If you can cultivate the mindset of contentment, you can excuse yourself from a lot of trouble, right? A lot of misery, a lot of extra, right? Godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. I'm here paraphrasing from the old King James Version, but let me just read it here so that we can be on the same page. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Right? We can avoid that, and we're going to multiply peace to ourselves. Be content with the wife that you have. Proverbs chapter 5. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times. Be thou always ravished with her love. But why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with the bosom of a stranger? Right? I guess we could go there real fast. Proverbs chapter 5. We're not reading the whole thing, but the writer is basically advising a young man to avoid finding himself in trouble as a result of indiscipline when it comes to women. He's basically telling the young man to stick with his wife and leave out the other women. Okay? Let's read from verse 1 and finish. My son, pay attention to wisdom. Lend your ear to my understanding, that you may preserve discretion and your lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. For the lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lay hold of hell. Lest you ponder her path of life, her ways are unstable, you do not know them. Therefore hear me now, my children, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Remove your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the cruel one. Lest aliens be filled with your wealth, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner. And you mourn at last when your flesh and your body are consumed, and say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart despised correction? I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to those who instructed me. I was on the verge of total ruin in the midst of the assembly and congregation. And here it comes to the whole idea of, sticking to your own thing. It says, drink water from your own cistern and running water from your own well. So he's speaking metaphorically, of course. Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be only your own and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breast satisfy you at all times, and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. His own iniquities entrap the wicked man, and he is caught in the cords of his sin. He shall die for lack of instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Right? What am I saying? I'm saying godliness with contentment is great gain. Godliness in this scenario here is being able to, one, be faithful to your wife, and two, it's the same thing, but two, avoid being entangled with a strange woman, as the Bible calls them. In this particular version, she's referenced as an immoral woman, but the King James Version describes her as a strange woman, meaning a foreigner, not foreigner from a different country, but foreign or alien to your situation, somebody outside there. And there's no shortage of Bible verses that reiterate this point over and over, because this is a challenge that many men have, right? This is no secret. From big presidents, Bill Clinton comes to mind, big preachers, right down to the little men. Men tend to have trouble with this thing here. And basically, the writer here is saying, listen, you can avoid all sorts of woes and stress and trouble and problems if you can just stay away from stepping outside of your relationship. He's saying, look, learn to be content with your wife. Let her satisfy you. You work it out with her. Work it out with her. Left out the other ones. You save yourself a lot of trouble. You can imagine yourself full of resources, full of money, full of all that kind of stuff, but then you have problems with your wife or problems with your, significant other, your husband or whatever. That's a pain. That's trouble, man. But if you can exercise godliness and love and patience and kindness, and you can reciprocate that one with another, you save yourselves so much problems. Right? Godliness with contentment is great gain. If we can get that done, we will multiply peace to ourselves. It would mean that if the Lord desires that I should be blessed and my business endeavors go very well, without me having to lose all sorts of sleep over it, well, so be it. And I would enjoy the blessing of the Lord. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But if it doesn't, do overwhelmingly well, and if my bank account isn't receiving hundreds and thousands of dollars weekly or monthly, I'll still be fine. I'll still be just as fine as if it were full to the brim, right? The man that is able to operate in godliness and contentment is not disqualified from having good things or the blessing of the Lord, but he's not attached to that outcome. He's not attached to all the trappings that usually accompany large sums of resources, right? That man can have peace. He can live in abundance or he can live on a budget. He can enjoy the overflow, should the overflow come, or he can manage with the little, right? But his joy, his happiness, his peace does not reside in his resources. It resides in his commitment to God and his commitment to godliness. He prioritizes love and patience and happiness in his relationship with his significant other, with his children, with his colleagues, etc. He prioritizes the love and the patience and the godliness and all these godly characteristics more than he is about the bottom line hardcore outcome. And I'm not saying he's an incompetent imbecile that is just all loves and giggles and has no ability to lead and has no ability to create profit. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he's not consumed by the outcome. And hopefully he doesn't have a woman who is consumed by those things, like Lot's wife, for instance. He doesn't have a woman that is always miserable because she can't access all the fine niceties of life, right? See, that's a challenge because you can't control your woman or the woman can't control the man, but it really takes two to be on the same page when it comes to this kind of thing, where both people can be disconnected from this hyper material world. And both people can have ambitions that are submitted to the realistic mind of God and not the unrealistic mind of the world, which is fueled by demonic forces. It's the demons that run the world, as you would know. And you would know that marketing people in their greed and in their avarice, they create desires in you. And then they price it in such a way that it got you. I would like that one, but that one is $7,000. But this one here, this will be alright, but it's $1,000, but I like that one. You want for $7,000. And they put in a little extra dooflicky here and a little extra dooflicky here. And they say, well, there's the top of the line flagship. This is the one that you want. And it's shiny red. And they give it a special little button or something. And now you're thinking about that all the time. When this would do, But that's the one that everybody getting. Drama, man. Drama. But you see, it takes two. If you have a woman, speaking to men here, obviously, if you have a woman that can't get your eyes off of them good things, well, sorry for you, brother. It's probably best that you avoid that type of woman to begin with. Right? And that can be a challenge in itself, but, it's best that you avoid that type of woman. And I'm not saying that you should be slack and lazy. And I'm not, because I'm not slack and lazy, right? I definitely, by nature, I'm a hardworking person and I like nice things and so on, yes. But I have to do my best to make sure that my desires don't override my common sense and my outlook on life. I have to make sure, I have to constantly remind myself, hey. All the things on earth are just for a season, right? For the world passeth away and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abides forever. 1 John chapter 2. I gotta remind myself of that all the time because I do like nice things and pretty things and that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not advocating that you be lazy, slack. I don't advocate that you should find yourself a woman that is slack and lazy and don't have any sort of, self-respect and so on. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just strongly pointing to the Bible, encouraging you, as I have to do, to look at the Bible and adopt the mind of the Bible, which is godliness with contentment is great gain. If you achieve godliness and you are able to build the skill and the faith and the proper mindset that allows you to have contentment, man, you are winning. You're winning. And if you can have a union with someone, your wife or your husband, if they're able to replicate that idea and the two of you can stay solid in that, you're winning, right? That's a real powerful combination. Godliness with contentment is great gain. You will save yourself so much trouble and you will save yourself heartache and stress and you will multiply peace unto yourself. And of course, when you've been able to master and multiply peace unto yourself, you can obviously help others. You can be a far better peacemaker, right? I hope that makes sense to you. It's always hard sometimes to articulate these things because you got so much in your head and you're limited by time and words, and sometimes it's just difficult to get it fully across the way that you would like to. I hope that the Holy Spirit can use my words and that it could be of some help to yourself. So I can finish here. And let me just pray and we can move on. So, Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you again for your grace and your mercy. I want to thank you for your word that gives us insight, gives us perspective, gives us education. It helps us to avoid traps, avoid unnecessary suffering, unnecessary wasting of time. It gives us a peek into the future, tells us what we should expect, what we can expect if we follow a certain course, and what we can expect if we choose to follow a different course. So, really and truly, if we can stick to the principles laid out in your word, we have the potential to have a far superior life with an expected end. A life with less surprises and less heartache and less challenges. Not that we won't get surprises, heartache, and challenges, but we could probably avoid all the unnecessary drama. So I pray, Lord, that you help us to prioritize your word and to really hold it as the greatest counsel, to really embrace it and to submit to its wisdom. Help us not to be so wise in our own eyes, and help us not to have a rebuttal for everything. Help us to be more childlike in that regard and more simple. Help us just to listen to God and just listen, man. Help us to just listen. Be a little bit humble and just listen to you and just do it your way. Lord, I pray that you help us. Help me, Father, with the things we struggle with. Help us with, because you know how we are. We could understand a lot of this stuff, but when the time comes, when the anger comes, when the temptations come, when the distractions come, there we go. Down the road behind whatever shiny object, pops its head up. Help us, Father, to stay focused. Help us to embrace your words and to move away from sin, move away from mistakes, move away from living by our own rules and ignoring your rules. I pray that you help us in all of these things. I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Hi guys, Joel Brooks here at the Insight Podcast. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video or found it informative, interesting, or helpful in any way, please give it a like and consider sharing it with your friends. If you want to stay connected, you can check us out at our website, insight.joelbrooksonline.com, and you can also check us out on social media. Links in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and God bless.